Okay, today we're going to talk about flexibility. This here is taken straight from the syllabus, so you can look at that again in your leisure. But basically, you need to know the types of flexibility, how to define it, how to test it, types of training used to develop flexibility, and the physiological adaptations that take place. It is important to remember that flexibility is joint specific and sport specific. And within that there's two types of flexibility, static and dynamic. And from the names you can imagine what they mean, but basically static is holding a flexible position, such as the splits, whereas dynamic flexibility is your range of movement, your ROM, which takes into account movement, so kicking a ball over a rugby post, the swinging of your leg. Dynamic flexibility is more common in sport, but static flexibility is a good basis for building your dynamic flexibility. And stretching is the way we train flexibility to improve our range of motion. Flexibility is often an underrated part of fitness, but if you look here you can see a long list of some of the benefits involved in being more flexible. Reduce risk of injury, improve posture, can help delay DOMS, definite performance enhancement because increased flexibility improves your technique and range of motion. Flexible muscles perform better, improve range of motion, therefore you can apply more force and power. Improve economy of movement, so for a given movement it takes less energy. And like I said before, with technique it improves your performance and skills. When we look at testing for flexibility, there is no one specific test, although the sit and reach test does cover hamstring flexibility and lower back flexibility. But often exercise physiologists will use a gonometer, which is a protractor like that with two sliding rulers, so you can measure the angle here of a joint, so that could be arms or limbs, but you can measure the angles involved, and that can be used at most joints. When we look at flexibility, you can break it down into two areas: maintenance flexibility and developmental. Maintenance flexibility is part of every session in your warm-up and warm-down. Developmental As you know from previous discussions, you should always raise your body temperature before doing any flexibility sessions, as a warm muscle will stretch easier. And when we look at training, the first one we look at is static, and there's two types: active and passive stretching. Active is when you move yourself into the stretch position, so you reach forward and touch your toes, for example. But a passive stretch is when a partner would help push you into the position. And some stretches are better done passively, some stretches are better done actively. You should hold a stretch at a comfortable position at the end of the range of movement, about 10 to 30 seconds. Ballistic stretching is rather out of fashion at the moment, but you do see sprinters doing it at the start of the 100 metres race. It's where you bounce at the end of the range of motion. So, you see stretchers bending over and bouncing up and down trying to touch their toes. It's not very effective because you're not in the stretch position very long, and you should have a good range of flexibility if you're going to be performing this type of stretching. Dynamic stretching is the most common form of stretching in a warm-up, where you take the muscle for its full range of movement, so high knees, heel flicks, sumo squats, those kind of things. It's the most effective way to prepare for the dynamic nature of sport. PNF stretching, also known as proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation, has a 3-step process. So first of all, you take a static stretch to your limit of range of motion, just where you feel that point of resistance. And then you contract isometrically against that stretch position for 10 seconds. That contraction switches off the stretch reflex. So now when you relax, you can actually increase the initial stretch because that stretch reflex has been inhibited, and it will allow your muscle to stretch further. You can repeat this up to about 3 times. Okay, so after a period of flexibility training, you can expect to see the following adaptations and benefits. So you get an increase in the elasticity and length of muscle and connective tissue, increased resting length of muscle and connective tissues. Muscle spindles adapt to their increased length, and you'll get an increased range of motion at the joint where you've been training. Increased potential for static and dynamic flexibility. Increased distance and efficiency for muscles to create force and acceleration. That goes back to our technique and skills. And increased ROM reduces the potential for injury to muscle and connective tissues during sporting movements. So it's good for injury prevention as well.